Good evening, folks. I hope all of you are having a good reInvent so far. A few months ago, my daughter reached out to me and said, Dad, I want some help with my studies. My teacher asked me a lot of questions related to inferencing, and can I use just generative AI to help me with my inference questions so I can get ahead of things? And I was like, what kind of inferencing are you talking about? She said, Dad, you don't understand it. It's these big essays, and they ask me these questions which I don't know how to answer. So maybe I can use generative AI so that I can ask questions to generative AI, and then that can help me with my studies. I said, you don't have to worry about generative AI. It's too complicated. Just ask me. She said, Dad, you're not that good. Gen AI is much better. That hurt my ego. But being a geek, I thought, let's solve her problem. So I started asking her where all her study material were, her notes, her handouts, her online study book. And as she was telling me all of those details, I realized that her data was spread across multiple applications. So I started thinking through solutions. And then she interrupted me. She said, by the way, Dad, I receive new handouts every few days. And I want to make sure I'm able to do inference questions on the new handouts as well. And then I paused. I realized her problem of data for AI was exactly the same problem our customers have been talking about. And I thought to myself, the product that we are building, I could be the cool dad using that in my family. My daughter uses Instagram. My wife is the superpower of Facebook. So if I build something that has Facebook and Instagram, they would really be glad. And that's essentially what we did. We essentially built a zero-hassle replication from different applications into Amazon SageMaker Lakehouse and Amazon Redshift. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I am Nitin Bahadur, Head of Engineering for AWS Glue and Amazon AppFlow. With me today, I have Sean Ma, Principal Product Manager, who's been the brains behind the solution. We also have with us Carmen, who's the Senior Sales Architect for Big Data. Carmen has wealth of experience of dealing with customer applications. With that, I'll hand it off to Sean to get us started.
Thank you, Nitin. Just in case you're not here to build applications for your children, maybe we should talk about some things you might be interested also in. So when we talk to customers, the number one thing that comes across is how do you get more value? How do you get the value out of your data faster and quicker for your business? Whether that's about driving AI adoption, so you can build Gen AI applications to serve maybe your end customers, stay competitive in the market, or in the case of Nitin, for his children and his wife. That's fair. Another big reason is simplifying analytics so that the content that you want to gain access to is actually accurate and up to date. And last but not least is making sure that that data that's then given to analysts for business purposes is actually operationalized in a way that they can rely on it. It can come in hour by hour, day by day, so that they can make business decisions on that side. This is what we've heard time and time again as key goals for our customers. Now, we all know that to get to this, you need the data. That's the fundamental building blocks for all this. AI analytics, right? That's the heart of what you want to do with it, whether it be for model training, or you need to get the data from various systems and prepare that so that you can do the machine learning necessary, whether for inference, where you need the most up-to-date information so you can build your knowledge bases through RAG. Last but not least, is then wherever that data is, making sure you can combine multiple different data sources into a single location so you can perform the enriching and the cleansing you want across that. These are the pain points, and I'm going to ask, how many of you guys have seen similar pain points about getting, or similar goals of getting this data? Can I just see a show of hands? Oh, good. You're not alone. One of our customers, Roche, multinational pharmaceuticals and diagnostics company, They also have this challenge. In this case, they're ingesting data from Salesforce into a data lake on Amazon S3 for machine learning purposes. They want to combine public and private data so that they can use AI and ML models to accelerate their go-to-market and learn from it, right? Their challenge with all this is that they know they need the data, they know what they want to achieve, but getting to that data in an effective manner is very time-consuming. Takes not only time-consuming, it's also not time-consuming just for building it, but also time-consuming to maintain it. Because as I said, as soon as you build it, you need to make sure it's there day in, day out. And of course, the data changes. And I don't mean, oh yeah, the data gets updated, we want to make sure we get the updates. The shape of the data sometimes changes. As applications and systems get more complicated, they change the schema of it. And that's also part of this, making sure that works all the way through. So one of our customers, Dr. Yannick Mistelli, he was saying, biggest challenge is an efficient way to replicate that data from various places into a data lake without having to build and maintain these large custom integrations. So that's the problem there. I hope this is something maybe that can also resonates with you. If it does, then you're in the right place, and here's what we're going to talk about today. First, we're going to talk where are the data integration challenges, okay? Why is this difficult? Why is it complex? When are times that you need it, when are times you don't? Then we'll go move into an application integration landscape, which will then move into technical deep dive. What are the problems, and how do you solve that? We'll also then talk about our new launch that was launched yesterday and how that solution can help solve some of these problems. And Kamen will also provide a demonstration of that. We'll wrap it up at the end with key takeaways and benefits. All right? So let me just set the stage before I invite Nitin back on so that we can understand how we're thinking about this problem and what are the challenges we're trying to solve. Okay, let's start off with the data journey itself. We talked about all these different data sources that you have inside of that. What's involved in making that data available for you? First of all, you're going to have to ingest that data, right? You have to bring that data into a place where that you can perform the necessary business logic, business transformations that you want on that. That's one part of this. The second problem is after you get the data in a format and in the structure that you're looking for, how do you then do the right processing and error handling for data quality, capabilities, data quality, sensitive data, understanding that data is the right thing and can be done in a consistent manner. After that pipeline's set up, you have to maintain it, which is where the operational part comes in. And this is actually what I said. It's not just a one-time thing. You have to do it over and over again. All this combined typically requires specialized ETL skills because if you have one type of tooling, one type of mode of operation, you're going to have to build it all using that so that you can gain value for your data. Don't get me wrong. There are many times where this is the process that you should be following. This is going to be very effective. It's going to be very effective for what you need. But at the same time, there are some scenarios that you're saying, well, how do I handle different types of data as they're coming in? So that's where different types of engines in that data processing flow comes in. First is there's stream processing, whether you may be using Amazon MSK or Kafka. There's batch processing, where you could be using Glue or EMR with Spark. And of course, event processing, so that you can then handle different changes of the data. These are kind of where we are today, right? We've got this pipeline that we understand. We've got these steps that we have inside of that, and we have these different engines that we can choose from. With that, then I'm gonna ask Nitin to come aboard to talk a little bit more about the technical challenge associated with simplifying this and making it easier for our customers.
Your data is stored in and being generated by multiple applications. Over the last decade, we have seen a tremendous increase in the number of software as a service applications, also known as SaaS applications. Enterprise IT deployments also have on-prem applications. And then there is a growing trend of multi-cloud and hybrid applications. And essentially, you have databases, you have IoT devices, and you have this whole myriad of applications. And if you really want to build intelligent AI and analytical solutions that use data from all your applications, then you need your data in a single place. Data silos are not going to help. Now, these different applications, they behave differently, they generate data at different periodicity, and there are different ways to interact with them. SaaS applications typically use the REST API. Then we have applications that use the SOAP API. Databases are known to offer JDBC as an interface for interacting with them. And then there are applications using remote procedure calls, you can interact with them. Thus, there are different ways and different mechanisms for interacting with these applications. And for you to build a solution across different applications, you have to be an expert in all of these different protocols. Now, you might say, how about we build a solution, one for each domain, and be done with it? But unfortunately, it's not that simple. There is no standardization today of how to fetch data from applications. Some application will provide an API that allows you to fetch all the data, including data that has been changed. There are other applications which will offer you an API for just getting new data and a different API for getting updates and deletes. And finally, there are applications who tell you nothing about deletes. You are all on your own about them. Now, when you're fetching data periodically, you have two options. Fetch the entire data every time and then figure out what changed, or intelligently figure out the increments. Even to figure out the increments, there are different mechanisms. Some applications offer a timestamp-based approach where you can say, tell me all the data changes since last Friday, 5 p.m., and give those to me. Whereas others will give you a token when you fetch data. And then you essentially have to return the token, and the application will return you all the data that changed since the last token was issued. Thus, there's a myriad set of application APIs, myriad set of behaviors that make this problem difficult. At AWS, we strive to maintain API backward compatibility. We make sure that we don't change API behavior, and if we are ever deprecating an API, we give customers a heads up. In the case of applications, we have learned the hard way that you have to be very careful when upgrading software versions because things can change. These are the class of problems that we ran into when we started looking into this problem space. Now, if you essentially have to build an AI solution or an analytical solution that provides you accurate insights, you need true replication. The Oxford English Dictionary defines replication as the action of copying or reproducing something. Let's see what it takes to actually get true replication. If you have new data that is being generated, it's relatively easy to move the new data from your application to your destination. Traditional ETL pipelines are very good at that. Things get a little harder if your data is changing, if things are getting updated. You have to go figure out what has changed, fetch the changes, and then apply it on your destination. Today, data lakes and data warehouses support the concept of an upsert. An upsert is an operation where it will generate a new record if the record does not exist. Or if the record exists, it will go and modify that record. Thus, once you have figured out the changes, it's relatively easy to apply it on data lakes and data warehouses. But the complex part is figuring out those changes. And then comes deletes. Deletes are hard. Imagine you have a car sales company, and you go to the dealership, and the dealership is essentially supposed to get a set of cars today. They're supposed to get 20 cars, and you are waiting for one of those cars, but only 10 came in. Their inventory system had 10 cars that were noted earlier, but when only 10 came in, they deleted those 10 because those 10 didn't actually show up. Now, when you're replicating, you want that delete to show up on your destination because people who are actually making analytical queries based on the data that's replicated, they are going to essentially get an incorrect sense of what actually happened. You can actually have bad business insights if deletes are not captured as part of replication. And last but not the least, there's this fun topic of schema updates. Every company has the concept of employee records. One day, someone decides to add a couple of fields in your employee records schema. Now, you have to detect that your schema changed, and you have to update your destination with the change in schema. While schema additions are a relatively easy topic, it becomes very hard when there are schema changes and deletes. For instance, someone decides to go change an integer type to a string. Or an employee looks at the schema of the employee record and says, this field has not been used for 5 years. Let's just get rid of it. It's tech debt. Now, suddenly they have changed the schema on your source application. That delete needs to get mirrored on your destination. These classes of problems need to be solved, because if you don't solve these problems, you're not going to have a true replica on your destination. If you don't have a true replica on your destination, you're not going to get accurate insights. At AWS, we pride ourselves in enabling customers in their use cases. Our customers use data lakes and data warehouses. So when we are looking at this problem space, we said we have to solve this for both data lakes and data warehouses. On data lakes, we decided to use Apache Iceberg as a table format for ingesting data. Apache Iceberg is widely used, and there are very good open source tools built around it. When you keep adding more data to your Iceberg tables, it can create a large number of small files. And if you have a large number of small files, it can impact your query performance. So we realized if you want effective querying, you have to regularly compact your Iceberg tables. And as your data grows, you have to make sure it is well partitioned, again, so that your query performance is not impacted. With data warehouses have their own format, which is optimized for querying. Data warehouses have their own SLAs for querying that they provide to customers. As data is being ingested periodically into data warehouses, we had to make sure it does not impact query SLAs. Adding new data is not that hard, but when you're changing things like changing schemas, deleting records, indexes, and other internal data structures need to get updated in the data warehouse. And those have to be done in a way that does not impact query performance. At AWS, we realized that this was an important problem for our customers. And we want our customers essentially to focus on building their business solution rather than dealing with the complexities of data ingestion, data replication, the complexities of creating data pipelines, and managing them. And that's essentially why we built this Zero-ETL product. Sean and Carmen will now go over the details of the product that we launched at the keynote yesterday.
Okay, so as you said, our approach to solving this based on those challenges we saw with building the data pipeline, making sure you get replicated data, handling the inserts, updates, and deletes, and maintaining that. We saw this challenge and we said this is something repeatable and more importantly, something we've seen in multiple places. And hopefully, many of you have heard about Zero-ETL, which is an initiative that AWS introduced in 2022, first with Aurora to Redshift, but we've actually been expanding that over time. And for those who are not familiar with it, Zero-ETL is a set of fully managed integrations by AWS with the goal of eliminating or minimizing the need to build ETL data pipelines for common scenarios with regards to ingestion and data replication. Okay. For what I was mentioning before, we have multiple different engines that were out there, stream processing, batch, event processing. The difference here is that Zero-ETL focuses on managing it and building it for you. So while those are great engines and have lots of capabilities, especially if you want to build your own pipeline, you want to manage it and maintain it yourself, there are going to be cases where you're looking for something that is a little bit more simplified and straightforward for those use cases, and that's where Zero-ETL comes in. I mentioned that we started with this in the past with data sources from we've had this for some time with data sources from DynamoDB, Aurora MySQL, Aurora MySQL, Aurora Postgres, and RDS MySQL. What we've added with this launch, the first part of two things that we've added with this launch, is support for applications. This is new. We're launching with Salesforce, ServiceNow, Zendesk, Salesforce Marketing, Facebook and Instagram ads that Nitin was talking about at the beginning, can't forget those, and Zoho CRM and SAP. These are the applications that you can now perform Zero-ETL integrations from to ingest and replicate data into your desired destination. And the other part that is new as part of this is, of course, our integration with Amazon SageMaker. You've probably heard about this during the keynote, which is our next generation of the SageMaker platform, is to bring together all of your favorite services and tools into a unified experience, and with unified data access to the Lakehouse and end-to-end governance. Specifically for Zero-ETL, what we're integrating with is the SageMaker Lakehouse. There you go. Which together with Zero-ETL, it unifies data across data warehouses, data lakes, operational databases, and now with applications, all creating a single copy of your data. This is where it brings it all together. So combined, now you have applications and you have this new destination with the Lakehouse itself. Let's get a little bit more detail about how this applies. What's the benefit with the Lakehouse? So first of all, Lakehouse is that single copy that allows you to gain the benefits of Redshift managed storage and the scale of S3. This is all governed using lake formation and catalog using Glue Data Catalog. But of course, in terms of accessing it, it uses an open standard, which is Iceberg API, and that's where the Zero-ETL ingestion and replication then integrates with. Together, we've talked about new sources, a new destination, and Zero-ETL. Together, this brings us with the launch of the integration that we talked about earlier. The key thing here is to simplify that data replication from these applications. And our goal and the benefits associated with it is what I'll talk about a little bit more before Carmen shows you and gets into the details of the solution itself. The first one is accelerating insights. And how do you do this, and what's the bane for this, is now we're talking about application data, which is no longer just relational data, which is typically well-defined in rows and columns. Now it's application data, which needs additional types of transformations to make sure it's standardized and conforms into your end systems. As usual with Zero-ETL, there's a simple no-code interface, which means more and more people can get access to this, which means you can gain insights from this much faster, which typically means more people can basically a democratization of the ingestion process. More people can do it because you have a simplified flow. It's also very cost-effective, but cost-effective in two different ways. Of course, there's a matter of building the pipelines, building the connectors, and and managing overall. That, of course, is important. That's something that, again, is handled automatically by Zero-ETL. But it also means when you're looking at this, you don't have to worry about additional licenses, you don't have to worry about additional connector fees or anything else associated with it. Everything is built in. So both the time you're spending is going to be less, the time you're maintaining for maintenance is going to be less, and you don't have to worry about adding anything extra on that. Last but not least, it's all pay per use. You only pay for the data that you ingest and the processing it takes to make sure it's written properly to your end system, applying those inserts, updates, and deletes to your end system. Finally, our goal, of course, is to simplify this, not just for designing it, not just for building it, but also maintaining it. We mentioned before that applications are constantly changing, not just the data itself, but also their APIs. That's handled automatically for you. We'll maintain the connectors, make sure they're up to date. The pipelines are also maintained by AWS. So if something goes wrong, it's our responsibility to look into it, to identify what the issue is and resolve it. You don't have to worry about that. And of course, being an AWS service, it integrates tightly with any other AWS services. In this case, Redshift, and the Lakehouse is built in directly into this offering here. Okay? So that's kind of the overview of how we approach this solution. Here are the key benefits for that, and now we're going to move on to Common, who's going to actually go into the details of the Zero-ETL capability.
Thanks, Sean. Hi, everybody. Excited to be here today. Thank you all for joining us. And I got the pleasure to talk about the exciting part, which is kind of lifting the curtains a little bit and talking about Zero-ETL under the hood and how we achieved what we achieved today. So if you think about a Zero-ETL, right, as a data pipeline, and this is slightly kind of complicated architecture which I'll try to break down for you. First, we start with, I would say, the easy part. Right, something that customers have been building for many years and may look like a traditional data lake if you look at it from the traditional data pipeline, if you look at it from the left to right. Right. So first, we need to somehow connect to a data source. Now, whether you're going to use a managed connector that we already have available on AWS or you're going to build your own, somehow you need to connect and start ingesting data. And then comes the hard part, right? So you need to be able to understand and transform this data into a standardized format that you can use after that for anything from analytics, SQL analysis, app development, machine learning, and so on. So when we talk about Zero-ETL, right, so the first thing that we did is we built a sophisticated, smart, intelligent connectors that are not only able to connect to a system and just ingest data, but also to understand what is the type of the data and what needs to happen before we save it into the target. Now, in case of Zero-ETL, we save this data into Amazon SageMaker Lakehouse, which means that you can access the data through an Amazon S3, but also Amazon Redshift. So no matter which one you choose, you can use your data. So when you create any integration, Zero-ETL integration, you typically have three components, right? So you have the source, so you need to select the source for your data. You need to select the objects or the tables that you want to ingest. And of course, you need to select the target, okay? And we're going to call this as a connector. The ETL part, we're going to call integration, okay? Bear with me. And then we have the target. Now, when you create a Zero-ETL integration, the first thing that we're going to do is what we call an initial load of data. So under the hood, we're going to connect to your source system. We're going to authenticate. And we're going to copy all the data that you have in that system into your desired target, okay? And then comes the difficult part. The thing that we saw with AWS and myself and my colleagues working with customers such as yourself when building kind of custom ETL pipelines is many customers, common use case we found is that they wanted to do a replication. But when it comes to actually fetching the changes of the data, understanding what action needs to be applied, and apply this action to the target, we saw that each of those customers had built custom implementations, some of them good, some of them not very good. So we decided to do something about it. Invent and simplify is one of my favorite leadership principles in Amazon. And so we decided to do something about it, and that's what we did, Zero-ETL. So now we have built on top of our connectors, which are able to connect and kind of ingest data, to also fetch kind of changes of your data, whether that's updates, inserts of new data, deletes, but also schema evolution. And being able to intelligently apply this into your target. Now, the interesting part here is that because we are standardizing on Apache Iceberg, that allows you to not only leverage Amazon SageMaker Lakehouse for a target, but also Amazon SageMaker Unified Studio, which we launched as a preview, to kind of have a single place to access your data and work with your data, right? So SQL analytics is something that I'm going to show you as a demo. But also, of course, you can do data processing, you can do machine learning, model development, application development, generative AI, anything you want. It's on the tip of your fingers. And now it's available in a single unified interface. So when we talk about Apache Iceberg, right, so we talk a little bit, Nitin talked a bit, Sean talked a bit. So first of all, hands up, everyone knows what Apache Iceberg is? Good. All right, so for those of you who don't know, it's an open table format. It's a standardized way for us to store data and allows us to store petabyte scales of data on data lakes. And why we do this in a standardized way? Well, it gives us a lot of benefits. First of all, it gives us a standardized API that we can use not only through Zero-ETL, but if you have other applications that supports Apache Iceberg, you can kind of integrate them into your solution. But it also gives us some cool benefits, such as time travel, schema evolution, and so on. So it kind of saves your updates of your data and schema evolutions in form of snapshots, and allows you to perform time travel and see how your data or schema evolves in time. So pretty cool feature that opens up kind of a whole new area of analytics that you can do. And then, when we talk about Apache Iceberg, combining it with Amazon S3, our simple storage service, we kind of have additional benefits here, right? So we all know that we have 99.11.9 durability, 99.99, and so on. Yeah, so we scale in 3 availability zones and so on. But the idea here is that we not only going to save data changes and replicate them across 3 availability zones at minimum, but also we're going to save the schema evolution, and we're going to give you ability for you to see the changes and have a minimum kind of slim chances of any data loss. So I'm going to give you a quick demo. And for this demo, it's a kind of a very simple customer scenario. So the goal is to optimize sales strategies and improve performance. The company is using Salesforce in this case, and it wants to leverage up-to-date data for SQL analytics and regularly sync their data with, from Salesforce in order to perform this analytics. So I'll be on the computer here because I'll have to pause from time to time. All right, so first, this is the architecture. So we're going to configure Zero-ETL to connect and integrate with Salesforce and fetch some data. And then we're going to apply the kind of the changes and update the data catalog. And of course, we're going to use Amazon SageMaker Lakehouse and the Unified Studio to perform some SQL analytics. So the first thing that we're going to do is, I'm going to play it. So when creating a Zero-ETL integration, there are 2 important constructs before you can start. The first one is to create a database, right? So, sorry. First one is to create a database. That database needs to point to an Amazon S3 bucket where we're going to store the data, okay? And the second one is a connection, right? So this is our interface, and in this case, I'm going to show you how easy it is to create a Salesforce connection. You just need to input several small things, like the URL, what authentication mechanism you want, and where to store the credentials, and how you want to name your connection. And of course, you will have to authenticate based on the mechanism that you're using. Pretty much that's it. Now we have the 2 constructs. The third thing that we need to do is actually creating a Zero-ETL integration. So Zero-ETL integration is easy as 1, 2, 3. First thing, we need to select our source. In this case, we are selecting Salesforce. I do apologize, my video here. Okay. So I'm going to try to skip the video a little bit. Okay. So we have already created the integration. I do apologize, the clicker is not working well. But several things that I want to mention. So the first thing is you need to select your source, and then you need to select your tables. Now, huge improvement that we did here was actually to make you able to select multiple objects as part of a single integration. So when you're creating a Zero-ETL integration, you can preview and kind of trying to find the play button. You're able to explore your data, preview the schema, and also preview the actual data, okay? And you're able to select multiple tables before you continue. So here I'm showing you also how fast it is to preview data. So we implemented a whole new API that allows us to query the data in Salesforce in real time, near real time, to kind of perform this thing. And the third thing is selecting a target. In this case, it's a SageMaker Lakehouse. And final thing, you need to name our integration. That's about it. Once you create it, we will launch what we call the initial load. And so what will happen is now the Zero-ETL integration will go to my Salesforce instance. It's going to, once it becomes active, it's going to load all the data. And then what we want to do is we want to show you how that data looks into the Amazon SageMaker unified interface. So I'm going to select my database, which is already available. We can see that the schema for the opportunity object that I've selected is already there. And we can run a simple query. So here's my data. I can do a preview. I can do a count. And we can see we have how many? 31 records, OK? So now let's go to Salesforce and do some changes, right? So something that you would expect anyone to do. So we're going to create few opportunities, OK? We're going to change some statuses of opportunities. And we're going to introduce some other changes, like deletes, for example. So let's make it very simple. We're going to change it to prospecting, three of our opportunities. Let's create 3 more opportunities. And we're going to also delete one, just for fun. So we can see how, not only how we're going to get this data reflected into our target, but also to see how we can trace back those changes. That was the idea. So I've created 3 opportunities, and I'm going to delete the middle one, okay, just for fun. Now, if we go back to SageMaker Unified Studio, I'm going to run a couple of more queries. First of all, let's do a count again. Let's see. So quick math, we created 3, we deleted 1, equal, what, 32, OK? So we have the count already there. And then I'm going to execute a couple of more queries. Now, this is a query. I'm querying the Apache Iceberg table here to see what are the different versions of my data. And here I'm showing you before and after, right? So before, how my opportunity status changed before and after. So it was close won, it became prospecting. And then here, I didn't remember what was the record that I deleted, so I've created a kind of a query that was showing me how the data is deleted. And the final thing I wanted to show you from the demo perspective was that all the changes have been logged into CloudWatch logs. So you can see here we have 31 records, which was the first query. 3 records for insert. We inserted 3 different opportunities. And here downstairs, you can see we kind of deleted one. Right, so we are focusing on the left side. I've blurred the other side because it doesn't give you much information. But you can see here a couple of important things. So first of all, Zero-ETL managed to read all the CDC changes that we did and apply those changes into the target. So actually, when we were querying the actual table, we saw the data as it is in Salesforce. And then I know it was a little bit quicker demo. I'm sorry, it was supposed to be able to pause it, but for some reason I wasn't. But then what we did is we queried the kind of the versions of my table. And we saw that we had 3 different versions. And we were able to go back in time and see what was the changes that was made. So it was first was 31 records, then it was 33. Then we saw that 1 record was deleted. 2 records where we change opportunity status and so on. So this is kind of added benefits that you get on top of what we've built because we standardized on Apache Iceberg. Okay, it gives you a lot of new kind of opportunities there. So just a quick demo recap because I kind of have the feeling that it could be a little bit too quick. So 1, 2, 3, right? So first, select your source. And we support currently 8 sources, but the list is long. Hopefully, it will be a lot more pretty soon. Then select the tables or the objects that you want to kind of replicate. Explore your data. Explore the schema of your data. Select your target. And that's it. Replicate. The final thing that you need to do is actually, and the demo was quite quickly to show you, was to define the freshness of your data. So how often you want Zero-ETL to go and check for CDC changes and bring them in. By default, we set that to 60 minutes. But we envision that we're going to make it available for you to change according to your needs. Pretty much that's what I wanted to kind of cover in terms of a demo. I'm going to hand over to Sean for closing remarks and key takeaways.
Thanks, Kamen. So where we're at right now, you've seen what some of the challenges that we've had, what challenges that we faced, and we've heard from our customers with a traditional pipeline process. Again, there are many cases where you want that customization, where you want to be able to fully control your end-to-end pipeline. But there are also just as many scenarios, common cases where you're ingesting data and you want to simplify that. You don't want to have to worry about it. You don't want to deal with the operational burden associated with it. So that's where Zero-ETL comes in. So kind of summarizing all this and bringing it all together to our discussion is Zero-ETL is meant to simplify your ingestion and replication. First, it came from various AWS sources, such as Aurora, RDS, and DynamoDB, and now we've added third-party data sources. Okay? Why? Just to remind everyone why we're doing this. Number one reason why is so that you can get access and insights from your data as soon as possible, right? It means that you don't have to worry about setting up those pipelines, maintaining it. You can just say, this is the source of data I want. Here's how I replicate it into my in system, have a single copy of it that's there. And you don't have to worry going forward. Number two is making sure that this is done efficiently, not just in terms of building it, right? Simplifying that process through through the visual interface, but also making it simple in terms of maintenance. You don't have to worry about updating it. You don't have to worry about updating as the data changes associated with it. And as I mentioned earlier, you only pay for what you use. So as the data comes in, that's what you're paying for. As the data is being written, that's what you have to take care of. All this is so that when you get to your insights itself, you don't have to worry that you don't have to worry that your data is out of date, your data has changed. All that is all taken care of, so you don't have to maintain it long term. And with that, I'm going to just bring it back to those customers that we talked about in the beginning. Remember, Roche in the very beginning came to us and said, hey, we're having a challenge maintaining these complex data pipelines. It's been an issue for us. They were one of the early customers who tried this one out, and they found it was a game changer. The key thing for them was it reduced their data integration time by 70% and cut the related costs by 50%. These are some of we also have other customers, Idealista, who's also an early adopter of this. They're a Spanish real estate listing company. They found that this simplified their data infrastructure architecture and how they would maintain it going forward. Last but not least is Tableau from Salesforce, which is our launch partner. They're seeing the Zero-ETL as a way to accelerate how their customers gain insight from all types of data. So that, of course, then you can visualize it and see it in their platform as well. So coming together, there's a challenge that we heard loud and clear from you folks. It's something that we have been working on for several years through Zero-ETL. We decided we want to expand this towards applications because we know a lot of the mission-critical data is inside of that. And bringing it all together with this launch is something that's available and built in now built into both Redshift and to the Amazon SageMaker Lakehouse. With that, if you want to learn a little bit more about Zero-ETL, the first QR code will take you to what is Zero-ETL, understand the full breadth of what's there. The second QR code will then specifically talk about the application, the new capabilities with regards to application support, as well as the Lakehouse support that are now there. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. I know it's getting late on this time. We'll be sticking around afterwards for some questions that we can take off to the side. And if you can, please give us some feedback inside the app. Thank you very much.